Good afternoon. I would like to welcome you to the July 8th, 2009 public hearing of the Board of Architecture Review. Appreciate everyone in attendance this evening. The board was established by zoning ordinance in 1958, and our first historic district was Gratz Park. We now have a total of 14 historic districts throughout the county. The board, which is appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the Urban County Council, is a part of the Division of Historic Preservation. The Preservation Office maintains a full-time staff to assist you with your projects. The board encourages and recommends that applicants use them as a resource. The Preservation Office is located at 101 East Vine Street in room 220. It is our procedure to consider applications in the order in which they are listed on our agenda. We'll attempt to sound each case. If there are any questions regarding the case, we'll go back through the cases in more detail. And the ones that we do need to have more detail on, we'll have the staff make a presentation, and then we'll hear any additional comments from the applicant. That board will then ask questions or make comments regarding the case and hear comments from any other interested parties. The chair will then ask the board members to enter a motion, and if you wish to address the board this evening, please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the public record. We also ask that you please write your name on the sign-in sheet by the door so that all the information may be recorded correctly. I'd like to note the following staff approvals before we begin our review of applications this evening. There are certain items that the staff can approve, eliminating the necessity for all applicants to appear before the board. There are a total of 15 approved applications noted on the agenda this evening. I'll need to read those into the record here quickly. In the Aylesford Historic District, there are 8 staff approvals. At 203 Arlington Avenue, re-roof structure. At 348 Aylesford Place, install fence. 325 Linden Walk, renovate structure. 346 Linden Walk, re-roof structure. 325 East Maxwell Street, renovate structure. 136 Old Lafayette Avenue, renovate structure. 337 Park Avenue, install lighting. And at 7 Preston Court, renovate cornice. In Belcourt, there are 3 approvals. At 140 East Belcourt, re-roof structure. At 260 Bell Place, renovate structure. And at 615 Boonesborough Avenue, renovate structure. In the Constitution Street Historic District at 232 North Limestone, install gate. In the South Hill Historic District at 371 Max Alley, install fence. In the 7 Parks Historic District at 1601 Nicholasville Road, install fence. And finally, in Woodward Heights at 839 West High Street, renovate structure. I will now proceed with a review of applications for certificates of appropriateness. The first case this evening is in Ellesmere Park, the Ellesmere Park Historic District. The address is 683 Ellesmere Park. The scope of the work is to change window material and design. Is that applicant present?
The applicant's not present, but he has received the packet, the staff write-up, and is comfortable with it.
Thank you, Mr. Giannacchio. Staff is recommending approval as submitted. Does anyone on the board have any questions regarding this case?
I have a question for staff on this one concerning the glass block dimensions.
Yes.
When we make these approvals for glass block to go into the existing window opening like we've done before, do we, glass blocks 4x4 dimension, what if it's an odd fit, like there's some leftover space on either side, a great deal of that? Is that addressed in any way as to how that's handled?
Yeah, the applicant would need to provide details about how they're going to accomplish it.
Okay.
And
to ensure it's centered and not pushed in one corner and trimmed out on 2 sides.
right, and not only about the block itself, but also the trim, how retaining the existing and how they're going to meet that and so forth. But
I was hoping we could add then that the final details come back.
I think that'd be very appropriate.
We do have a little sketch on that. Was not included in the packet, but
Okay.
Randy? The opening is approximately 36 inches wide and 22 inches tall, and that's the way the 6x8 blocks were going to fit in. And that's that window opening is a wrapped condition already.
Okay. Well, I'm satisfied just as long as the final
Right.
details can come back.
I'm in agreement.
Thank you. Let's see if anyone in the audience has any questions or comments regarding this case. Okay, hearing none, certainly entertain a motion, please.
Mr. Chairman, in regards to case number 06510683-I, 683 Ellesmere Park, I move that the staff accept the application as submitted, along with staff recommendations to include that the final details come back for staff approval.
Thank you, Mr. Hosfield. Is there a second to the motion?
If I could make one amendment to the motion, just that you said come back to staff, that staff approve it is actually the board could approve it. I think that's what you meant, but just make sure the language is clear in the motion.
I think the staff could approve that.
No, I mean, you asked that you move that the staff approve it, conditioned upon the staff approval. I just want to make sure that we're clear.
Yes,
the board-
this is for the board to approve.
I would second the motion with that amendment.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any discussion of the motion? Hearing none, and all those in favor, please signify of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next case this evening is in the Woodward Heights Historic District at 628 West High Street. The scope of the work is to construct an addition. Is that applicant present? If you'd come forward, please, sir, and give us your name and address.
Hi, Andrew Grimes, 628 West High.
Thank you, sir. Staff, have you had an opportunity to read the staff findings and
Yeah,
recommendations?
we're good with everything.
You're good. Excellent. There are four conditions.
Yep.
Let's see if anybody on the board has any questions for you.
I don't have any.
I have no comments.
Does anyone in the audience like to speak to this case this evening? Okay. Certainly entertain a motion, please.
Mr. Chair, with respect to case number 093000628-L at 628 West High Street, I would move that we adopt the staff recommendations, if I find the amended one, staff recommendations with the conditions that number 1, soffit projection to be 8 inches, 2, wall finishes to be 6-inch reveal, hardy plank clapboard, 3, all windows to be 1/1 design, and 4, all doors to be full light design.
Thank you very much. Is there a second to the motion?
Second?
Thank you. Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Sir, thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
Excuse me. The next case is in the Ellesmere Historic District at 325 Linden Walk. The scope of the work is to rebuild an addition after a fire. Is that applicant present?
The applicant is not present but has received their staff report.
Okay. Staff is recommending approval on a single condition that once building inspection reviews the documents, that all final details come back to staff prior to issuance of the COA. I guess it's up to you gentlemen whether we come back to this to see if the applicant arrives or go ahead and take action on it.
Because there's no staff conditions that would require any changes to the actual plan, it would only be in the future after building inspection. I don't see any reason why we couldn't go ahead and discuss and vote on this issue.
Excellent. Well, let's see if anyone in the audience is here to speak to this case this evening. Okay. Well, anyone will certainly entertain a motion on it then, please.
Mr. Chairman, in regards to case number 117200325-A for 325 Linden Walk, I move that we accept the COA as submitted with staff recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Hosfield. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Billings. Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. The next application is in the South Hill Historic District at 432 South Broadway, and the scope of the work is to enlarge parking area. Is that applicant present?
Hi, my name is Mohammed Siraji, 260 Bowling Springs.
Sir, thank you very much. Have you had an opportunity to read the staff's findings and recommendations?
Yes.
Are you in agreement with them?
Yes.
Excellent. Let's see if anyone on the board has any questions or comments for you.
Sure.
Gentlemen? I'm sorry. This is 432 South Broadway. Did I skip?
That's
4 and 5.
Oh, dear. Well, excuse me.
I don't mind sounding, we can go and sound this one, I'm trying to find where we are.
I apologize profusely. Sir, since you're already up here, while you're up here,
It took me by a little surprise.
give me 2 seconds here, and we'll.
Okay, sorry, okay.
I apologize.
That's okay.
To numbers 4 and 5.
I don't need to find my notes. I remember
I'm good to go.
from my studying of this so far. My only comment is just thank you for working with the board and the process to get the best solution to meet your needs and meet our needs as well. I appreciate your patience and diligence.
Sure. Good?
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
Okay. Would anyone in the audience like to speak? This is actually case number 6. Anyone in the audience wish to speak to case 6? Hearing no one, would please entertain a motion on this.
Just to make sure I'm right, you're in agreement with all the staff recommendations?
Yes.
Including the 18-foot apron in lieu of the 25-foot?
Actually, right after I received the recommendation, I have made the change on the draw, and if you would like, I can show it to you.
If you're in agreement with it, I don't even need to see a drawing. That's the only one I had a question of.
That's not a problem.
But if you're in agreement with the 18-foot apron, then there's no need to discuss it.
Sure. It's already been changed on the drawing, so.
That's okay, if you're in agreement with that. Mr. Chair, with respect to case number 025-10432-K at 432 South Broadway, I move that the board adopt a staff recommendation of the application is submitted with the following conditions. Number 1, the width of the apron on the back edge of the Pine Street sidewalk to be no greater than 18 foot in lieu of the proposed 25 foot based upon Mr. Siraji's comments and agreement today, and that it be reduced on both the east and the west sides of that apron. 2, final drawing indicating all changes to be submitted to the staff for review and final approval. And 3, any additional changes as required by any other LOTCG divisions or departments to come back to staff for review and approval.
Thank you, Mr. Billings. Is there a second to the motion?
A second?
Thank you, Mr. Hosfield. Is there any discussion of the motion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Sir, thank you very much.
Okay.
Now we'll go back to case number 4. Again, apologize for that.
We did 3.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're on 4312 South.
In the South Hill Historic District at 312 South Upper, the scope of the work is to construct a dormer. Is that applicant present? Sir, if you'd please come forward and give us your name and address.
My name is Bob Radke, and I'm at 2091 Cummins Ferry Road.
Thank you, sir. Have you had an opportunity to read the staff's findings and conditions?
Yes, I have.
Are you in agreement with them?
I would like to make it smaller as they've discussed, and will make it smaller if possible, but because it's up so high, the only way that we can open up this area is to open it up. It's a shed dormer that I'm requesting, and all I want to do is be able to run it the full length of the bathtub that somebody put in about 30 years ago that now takes a stool to take a shower in. And so every recommendation, including making it smaller, is fine with me if we can achieve that goal.
I think that I'm comfortable with that. And we'll see if anyone else on the board has any questions or comments regarding the case.
Only question I had for staff is, it looked to me like when it said smaller, I wanted to make sure that I understood exactly what staff was suggesting. That the width of it, instead of being 10 foot, be reduced, but I didn't see a proposed width in there. Did you all have a proposed width that it be no greater than, to make sure that we are consistent with what the applicant's saying?
The staff doesn't design on the fly in that fashion,
Okay.
in the sense of just picking a footage. And so by that recommendation, we're intending that it should be further studied to see what could be accomplished to make it smaller and what would be reasonable within that.
Okay. So do you have an idea of what size you're talking about?
Well, the bathtub's 5 foot, but it depends on what happens when you open up the roof as to what you can end up with. 7 would be my best guess, but I don't know that to be true until I go 3.5 stories up on scaffold to put this thing in, you know?
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Hosfield? You thinking?
Yeah, I'm thinking. Okay. I'm sorry, just to go back, you mentioned that the dormer was to be shed, and I believe one of the staff recommendations is that the dormer actually be gabled. Is that something you're in
I
agreement with?
missed that, but if I had to bet, the gable would come over the peak of the roof line, if that was in there.
Would the staff like to clarify that in a presentation, or do we need to?
Staff will be glad to present the information if you would like.
I think
I
just
think that-
because we've come across this difference, it would be a good idea.
I think that might be prudent, if you're agreeable to that, sir.
To what now?
To have to come back to your case and have the staff run through it and make sure that we all understand exactly what the staff is proposing, and that
Okay.
you're comfortable with all of their recommendations.
Okay. So the next available time then would be.
Oh, just in a couple of minutes.
Oh, very good.
If we just have a seat, they'll come up and give
No
a presentation. We'll
problem.
call you
Great.
back up to ask you
Okay.
questions.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Okay, the next case is in the North Side Historic District at 449 West 3rd Street.
Just want to sound everything. Okay.
Change the height of rear addition. Is that applicant present?
Hello.
If you please give us your name and address, sir.
Seth Brewer, 263 North Broadway and 449 West 3rd Street.
Thank you very much. Have you had an opportunity to read the staff's findings and recommendations?
Yes, I have.
Are you in agreement with them?
I do not agree that the BOAR approval should be contingent upon a window change.
Okay. Would you like us to hear the case then?
Pardon me?
Would you like us to hear the case?
Please.
Okay. We'll be back with you in just a few minutes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I don't know if you all have some drawings. I got my copy of the agenda, but do you have line drawings from both the outside and the inside? The inside work is what predicates the outside work. It was something that was requested of me at staff level, but I don't know if you need it or would like to see it.
I believe we do have it.
You do? Okay. Another note I have is that the photographs that I provided are not exactly accurate. That was my own amateur attempt at some photoshopping, and I brought the addition roof line right up to the existing gable. It would in fact be about a foot below that, so that it wouldn't interfere with the existing fascia boards.
Okay, excellent. We'll be right back with you, sir. Thank you. Let's see. In the Belcourt Historic District at 141 West Belcourt, the scope of the work is to remodel a garage and extend a walkway. Is that applicant present?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. My name is Kevin Murphy. I live at 141 West Belcourt.
Sir, thank you very much. Have you had an opportunity to read the staff's
Yes,
findings
I
and
have.
recommendations? Are you in
Yes.
agreement with them?
Yes, I am.
Excellent. Let's see if the board has any questions for you.
I don't have any.
I have no comments.
Thank you, gentlemen. Anyone in the audience wish to speak to this case this evening? See anyone coming forward? So please entertain a motion on this.
Mr. Chairman, with respect to case number 0150141-D at 141 West Court, I move that the board approve the application as submitted to remodel the existing garage with the following conditions. 1, the dormer window be 1/1. 2, the gable window be reduced in size with the final details to come back to staff. And 3, once reviewed by building inspection, that the final details also come back to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Billings. Is there a second to the motion?
A second.
Thank you, Mr. Hosfield. Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Sir, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next case this evening is at 429 North Broadway in the North Side Historic District. The scope of the work is to construct a handicap ramp. Is that applicant present?
The applicant's not here, but he is aware of the staff's recommendation.
Have you had any, I'm sorry, Mr. Jockey, have you had any communication with the applicant? Do you know if
No.
he's in agreement with them? Okay. This is a fairly lengthy condition set. It's board's pleasure whether to act on it now or wait to see if the applicant attends this evening.
Because there's a number of conditions on this one, I'd just move, we just move it back to the end of the docket like we are with the other ones to be heard.
I agree.
Okay, we'll come back to this one in just a minute. And the next application is at 367 Park Avenue in the Aylesford Historic District. The scope of the work is to remove a porch enclosure, change a garage opening, and construct a patio. Is that applicant present?
No.
Okay. Maybe we'll come back to this one as well?
I'd like to come back to this one because one of there's material change in the size of the patio.
Certainly. All right, let's try,
Before we shuffle this one to the back, do we know if the applicant had any problem with the staff recommendations?
thank you, Mr. Housefield.
I mean, if they're okay with it, we can just do it now.
The staff report was sent to him, and there was a phone call made, and has been no response
Okay.
since.
Thank you, Ms. Armstrong. The next case is at 628 West Short Street in the Western Suburbs Historic District. The scope of the work is to demolish a porch, construct a second-floor deck with a pergola. Is that applicant present?
My name is Shay Murphy, 100 Spring Mint Court, Nicholasville, Kentucky. I'm not the applicant, but I'm the applicant's representative.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Have you had an opportunity to read the staff's findings and recommendation of approval as submitted?
Yes.
Are you in agreement with that?
Yes.
Excellent. Let's see if the board members have any questions for you.
No questions or comments?
I have none.
Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this case this evening? Okay, I don't hear anyone. I'd entertain a motion on this case, please.
Mr. Chairman, in regards to case number 17170628-C at 628 West Short Street, I move that the application is approved, as noted with the staff's recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Hosfield. Is there a second to the motion?
Motion second.
Thank you, Mr. Billings. Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. And the next case is in the South Ashland Central Avenue Historic District at 281 South Ashland Avenue. The scope of the work is to demolish an addition, construct an addition, and site work. Is that applicant present?
Hi, Friesberg Bobby, and I'm handling this on behalf of my parents. I did receive a copy of this morning. I've looked over it, and one, I don't understand every part of it, and two, I disagree with most of it.
Okay.
And wanted to find out if that could be explained to me in plain English.
I think we will do our best to absolutely do that. And if you will entertain us for just a few minutes, we'll come back to the case and we'll give it the hearing, and we'll get it to you in as layman's terms as we can.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, very much. Okay, the next case is at 135 Clay Avenue in the Aylesford Historic District. The scope of the work is to construct an addition. Is that applicant present?
The applicant is not present. He has received his staff report, and he said he is unable to attend the meeting tonight.
I see. Staff is recommending disapproval as submitted. I'd also note for the record that a letter has been submitted in objection to the case, as the applicant will not be able to attend, and we must act on this evening. I don't really see any reason to delay acting on it any further. Anyone on the board like to make any comments regarding it?
I have nothing to add. I'm afraid the deadline for action is what's guiding the course here.
Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this case this evening? Sir, yes, if you'd like to come forward, please, and give us your name and address.
My name is Charles Hyde. I'm at 929 Aurora. Did you want me to make my comments now, or is it going to be in a later time in the meeting?
I think we'll go ahead and we'll go ahead and hear it now, since the applicant's already indicated he's not going to.
Okay, I'll be brief. I just wanted to thank the Board of Architectural Review, you gentlemen, and also the Historic Preservation staff, especially Ms. Armstrong and Ms. Kerr. I'd also like to thank the enforcement staff of the codes enforcement. They've done a good job on this one. I'm working with some neighbors who are in favor of what the staff has recommended, in other words, of turning this down, of disapproving this. We concur with the staff recommendation against. In or around 2005, Mr. Marshall added on to his house basically what he's trying to add on to now. That whole section below his patio was added on to in a very long weekend without BOAR approval and without a building permit. We did an open records request, and the last building permit issued for that property, non-electrical, was 1998. So we just want to commend you all for catching this one early this time and advise you all to keep an eye on this gentleman. He has a habit of flaunting your rules and flaunting codes enforcement's rules. And that's all we wanted to say. Thank you so much.
Sir, thank you very much for coming down this evening. Would anyone else in the audience like to speak to this case? Staff, Ms. Kerr?
Staff just got copies of some emails from this applicant, between the staff and the applicant, and would just cycle those to you all to have. And if anybody needs a copy, they're welcome to them. You'll see in these emails that staff's been in communication trying to work with the applicant, and I'll just let the emails stand on their own. But at this time, we have not enough material or anything to affect where this case has been headed from the applicant.
Thank you, Ms. Kerr. And the record does have a copy of these. Excellent. Any other discussion?
I would just comment for the record. I'd like to thank the gentleman in the audience's comments on this case. This case has been before us, I think, on at least 3, if not 4 other occasions. And this is one of the unfortunate instances where, as a board, we do not have enforcement powers. We only have approval powers with respect to applications made to us. Enforcement is really in the hands of building inspection. And you're correct, sir, the staff has worked very diligently on this with the property owner to try to facilitate what he would like to do within the guidelines. And really, they're not our rules. There's another board that actually promulgates the guidelines that we just apply to a case-by-case application. So they're not our rules. We don't create them. The other board does. What I would say is that for homeowners, that you all are the best people out there to help the staff and code enforcement know about these things. Obviously, there are thousands of historic properties under the H1 overlay, which is impossible for the staff and code enforcement to regularly patrol and keep up to date. So what you all have done in staying involved is critical to preserving historical integrity of neighborhoods and houses, and we appreciate your all's involvement. I think there's no question that this is an example of a property owner who has continually flouted the historic process to preserve historical structures, and would not have come to the board had he not been caught again. And so I think you're right that it is appreciate the staff's diligence and code enforcement's diligence on this gentleman, and I pray that you will continue to watch him in the future. Doesn't mean that he may not have some project that should be approved under the guidelines, but it's unfortunately sad that this happens.
Thank you, Mr. Billings. Any additional comments?
I have a comment and a question. The first comment pertains to the group of emails we just received, and I think it should be made clear. The last email from the applicant states that he was not aware that his project would be reviewed this evening until these emails occurred. I think it's important that we mention that his case was postponed the last 2 meetings in a row, and at each instance, the next date was posted. So this is not...
Well, and they were postponed at his request.
Right, also. So it was not guarded information, just to make that clear. And my question for the staff would be, what is the fate of the addition that's been built up to this point, if it is turned down this evening?
Depending on the board's action, if you disapprove his application, then obviously it will exist in violation and will either need to be removed or something done to bring it within the guidelines, but it can't just sit there.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Hosfield. Any additional comments or questions? It would certainly entertain a motion on this.
Yes,
Oh, I beg your pardon, sir. Yes, please.
In light of her answer, is it within your power to recommend that that addition be removed? Because there's no way it can be brought into compliance.
What we do
Can I
is-
interject one thing?
Certainly.
Go ahead.
There is an appeal process of the board's decision. So any party would have the right to appeal a decision of the BOAR. It's to the Planning Commission. They have 30 days to do that. So should that party, any party make such an appeal, then it would go on through that process. If no appeal is filed within the 30 days, you'd wait for that, and then it would be noticed and ordered back that he's in violation and start the process of remedying that.
Okay.
And
So
that's not done by this board. We don't have the authority to enforce someone who's in violation. That would be done by the staff in conjunction with either code enforcement and or building inspection.
Is it within your purview, though, to make a recommendation?
Well, we would disapprove the application, and after we disapprove the application, anything done in violation of that application is in itself a violation of the ordinance then.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to add on to his comment. I knew when the next meeting was going to be, so he should have known when the next meeting was going to be, too. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any additional comments or questions? Okay, would entertain a motion then, please.
Mr. Chairman, with respect to case number 04150135, located at 135 Clay Avenue, I move that we disapprove the application as submitted for the reasons stated on the record.
Thank you, Mr. Billings. Is there a second to the motion?
A second.
Thank you, Mr. Hosfield. Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And the last case on our docket this evening, before we go back to the beginning, is at 144 Shawnee Place. The scope of the work, that's in the Seven Parks Historic District. The scope of the work is to demolish an addition and deck and construct an addition. The applicant has requested a postponement until the next hearing, which is July 24th, 2009. Could I have a motion to that effect, please?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Hosfield. Is there a second?
Motion second.
Thank you, Mr. Billings. Any discussion of the motion? I've neglected to ask if anyone is here regarding that case this evening. Okay, hearing no one. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries, and that case will be heard on July 24th. Okay. Sir, if you'd like to just keep your seat there for just a minute, we'll have the staff run through the presentation, and thank you for your patience. We're back at 312 South Upper Street in the South Hill Historic District, and the scope of the work is to construct a dormer.
This is the property at 312 South Upper Street. And the applicant today is asking to install a dormer. On the side gable here. If you can see from this angle, actually this is the opposite side, similar to this, but on the opposite side of the house. It's very hard to photograph, so this is our best shot. If we can go to the plans, please. At the time of the application submission, the dimensions that you see in the staff report of being 10 foot wide by 2 foot tall and being projecting out 5 feet was what the request was. And the windows are to be Herod hopper windows. And as he stated earlier, this is to be over a bathtub in a bathroom that was created many years ago within the structure. Guidelines are included for your reference. The concept of introducing a dormer on the rear side of this gable is within the guidelines. But it requires further discussion. A proposed dormer needs to be reduced in size so as not to interrupt the valley and to be more appropriately scaled in order to have an equal amount of roof surrounding the dormer. Guidelines 2A, 5A state dormers should be in keeping with character and scale of the building. Staff suggests the width of the dormer be reduced. In addition, the dormer needs to be more compatible to the other roof dormer or roof forms. Guidelines 2A, 5C says dormers and roof other additions and decks and balconies should only be added when the character with the existing building. Roof largely consists of gables, and all existing dormers and gables are angular gables, and the introduction of a shed roof should be consistent with the roof form. Staff recommends the dormer have a gabled form in which the ridge does not rise above the gable. Staff recommends approval as submitted with the following conditions. The dormer size be reduced. Final details of the dormer be gabled, and final details come back to staff. Final details of window to come back to staff prior to purchase. And all exposed wood and siding material be painted, and all final details come back to staff. The applicant is present.
Thank you, Ms. Armstrong. Sir, if you'd like to come back forward. Okay, I think we'll. I think we've discussed the size. I guess the form of the dormer is in question now. Whether it be a shed dormer as you're proposing, or staff is proposing as a gable dormer, and the floor is yours.
I don't really care what we do. I just don't believe that the dormer style other than the shed will work up there because it's situated so close to the top of the rafters in this bathroom area that I don't see it possible to achieve what we need to achieve. Because you're going to take a bathtub like this and put something over the top of it like that, and the only way you're going to get headroom on the outside edges is to raise the dormer completely above the peak of the roof. And as you can see in the pictures, it can't be seen from where it's at the present time unless you decide to look at it from the front side of the house if we raise that up.
Well, and you actually can't raise the dormer gable above the peak of the roof line anyway under the guidelines. You have to be stepped down below it. So.
Okay, so that I really don't believe that's a possibility, but I'll do it if that's what it takes. It's hard to find, people 4 foot tall to rent in a shower situation like that. And I'm not kidding you, that's what it is. How the lady rented it before me is way beyond my imagination, but she did.
Let's see if
I've tried to look at ways to lower the tub, and I can't do that either because it's directly in a hallway area, so I can't give up the headroom in this, staircase.
see if Mr. Osfield has any suggestions for you.
I think you've got a couple of options that are worth studying that'll help, that could help your situation. That, I don't know what the action will be tonight based on this, but something to consider. By narrowing the gable as recommended by the staff, you stated earlier the tub is 5 feet in length.
Mm-hmm.
I know you would like to have a wider gable than that, but if it were...
Not necessarily. I don't really care. All I want this thing to do is to have the headroom above the tub. But 10 foot was the guess, because I knew if I could make it smaller, once I opened up the ceiling, then all I want to do is be able to support it with a 2x4 wall on each end and the side.
Sure.
You know?
What I'm getting at, though, is by reducing the width of the gable to 5 feet or as narrow as possible on the inside, you're giving yourself more height on the side walls before you have to start the angled wall up in order to keep the pitch or the peak of the gable below the peak of the existing structure. That makes sense.
Well,
Hold on a moment.
if you're doing a drawing,
Yes, sir.
if you put a person in the shower who is 5 foot or 6 foot, whatever the norm is these days, and you put them on one end or the other end, you still need 6 foot on one end or the other before you can start your gable. If you're going to keep it in the form of what there is on this house already, they're pretty steep. You know, as far as the look goes, you're going to try and achieve that on the back side.
I see. I can't tell you if this is going to solve your problem or not, but I think it will give you more vertical space. I don't know if it's enough. I don't know how we convey a sketch.
I can walk up.
Put up an elbow.
I'll come up and get it. Or she can take a look at it.
My only point is that there's more vertical room available, possibly. Oh, really? Oh, yeah.
Kind of the concept that staff is working toward in terms of it being more in the character of the roof lines that exist on the house. But I would also caution, have you talked to building inspection in terms of a building permit on this? Because you're going to get into structural, when you cut the rafters and all, and you're going to need a building permit.
Right.
I think before a permit is issued from our end, we need to know from building inspection if what's being worked toward is going to meet the code. Because you're going to get into height limitations for the codes about your interior space, your clearance for occupancy, for human occupancy. So I think that needs to be part of the formula here in terms of any final approval, and would be glad to have that added to, after he's talked to building inspection information, to come back to details to staff, depending on the board's action tonight.
I agree.
With the 10-foot dormer, how close to the valley is it going to come?
It's going to be tight.
It's going to be pretty close in there. Mm-hmm. I mean, it sounds to me like you don't think you need 10 feet anyway. It's just that was just the initial proposal, but you think you can do it in less than that. You just don't know whether it's between 6 or 7 or 7 and a half.
Exactly.
I'm under the belief that and this is maybe a slight alteration to what I've said up here from before, but the more we can say, yes, you can if, rather than no, because we assist people to do projects to improve their property that are still within the guidelines. I think I'm not sure that a shed dormer is against the guidelines, but it does seem like a gabled may have, pardon me, some advantages that a shed does not for what you're looking for headroom. My concern of those that a gabled, depending on what your pitch is, may exceed the roof line of the main structure. That's my one concern about.
Well, if that had to be the case, then the staff would not recommend a gable.
Okay.
It needs to tuck in under the
it has to be done under that. That's what.
Right.
The starting point, I think, in discussion so far is working your way down with starting with the top of the gable below the existing peak of the roof and then work your way down.
Right, see how much vertical wall you can get.
Yeah. And do we have any comments on the pitch of the roof at the gable as well? I mean, it seems like they should be similar to the existing
It needs
roof.
to be of not perhaps quite identical pitch, but in the same school as what's there. I mean, if you ended up with a gable that's practically flat, that's not accomplishing what's intended.
Right. But there is
So-
some leadway. We don't need to match it exactly, but similar.
In a similar rake as that
acceptable.
of the existing would be appropriate language.
Does anyone know what the pitch is on the main structure and then on the rear addition?
Martin, have you looked at that? I think they're about
Are
612.
both of them 612?
The main house probably a little less.
The rear one looks steeper than the main.
And that's one reason to need, to have additional study to this and have some drawings reflecting where we're trying to get so that things like that can be weighed.
Well, I'm under the belief that we should approve it with a gabled style to be approved to come back to staff with building inspection findings. With final details, come back to staff for approval before construction begins. And that if there's a disagreement at that point, it can come back to the board so that he can begin moving forward with building inspection and working on the project.
Fine with me. I'll do whatever it takes. Appreciate your drawing. I'll let you know if it happens.
Let's see if anyone in the audience has any comments or questions regarding this case.
Here, you want
None, certainly. Any other comments or questions from the board?
Not for me.
No problem.
Certainly entertain a motion regarding this case, please.
You go ahead. Mr. Chairman, with respect to case number 194-50312 at 312 South Upper Street, I would move that the board adopt staff recommendations of approval of the application as submitted with the following conditions. The dormer be reduced in size with the details, as I'll discuss in a minute, to come back. The final details of the dormer to be gabled, and final details come back to staff on the gable. Final details of windows come back to staff prior to the purchase. That all exposed wood and siding material be painted, and that all final details and any requirements from building inspection to come back to the staff for final approval. If there's disagreement, then it can come back to the board for a resolution of that disagreement.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Billings. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Hosfield. Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Sir, thank you very much.
Thank you. You bet.
Okay. Okay, the next case is in the North Side Historic District at 449 West 3rd Street. The scope of the work, again, is to change the height of the rear addition. And staff, if you'd run through the presentation quickly so that we're all on the same page, I would greatly appreciate it.
This is the structure at 449 West 3rd. This is the rear elevation of which is part of the concern. The element on the right, which is more or less a flat roof, is to be raised 3 feet or 36 inches. Something went too fast there for me. This is the west elevation. Now I'm back to the rear. Well, thank you for the rear elevation. Right there in the upper right-hand corner is where the roof line is to be raised up 3 foot, which would tuck it in right underneath that rake board coming down. Now we're on the west elevation, seeing the windows, and that cornice line there would be raised 3 feet, which would hold it right below the cornice in the upper right-hand corner there. And this is looking down that side, seeing the addition that was done about the 70s. The new owner of this property is requesting the board grant a COA to raise the wall of the roof system of the late 1970s addition located at the building's northwest corner by 3 feet, which is approximately 13 brick courses. The purpose of the desired increase in the additional height is to have the additional floor and ceiling elevation at the second floor aligned with those of the historic structure's second floor. At present, the floor elevation of the addition is 8 inches below that of the historic structure, such that the floor elevation needs to be raised 8 inches. Randy, if I could have that interior line sketch with the window. This rear addition, there we are. Actually, I've put one new dimension. Well, I have a couple of dimensions there that I've shown. My dimensions are on the left-hand side of the windows, such as raising the 8 inches is shown on the right depiction there. I guess maybe I ought to be right here. This is the addition existing, and this is what's proposed. So this is 6'10" to the top of the window trim now, and once you raise the floor up 8 inches, then this would be 6'2". So a 6 foot high person head would be right there approximately at the trim line of the head of that window. The effect of the 3 foot height increases at the exterior of the building has been illustrated by both a line drawing and with digital enhanced photographs. So Randy, if I could see the line drawing for the exterior. And so you see here, this is the existing roof line, and as you raise this roof line up 3 feet, this is how the new one tucks in, or the new roof rafters would tuck in just below the cornice. The line drawing more accurately depicts how the addition's facial gutter system, after the 3 foot rise, tucks in under the frieze of the historic structure. We've listed the guidelines for your reference. The findings, the concept of raising a rear addition walls and roof system to achieve the desired head height within a structure is found to be appropriate within the guidelines. However, the manner by which it is achieved requires careful consideration. Guideline 2A4C states Additions should be compatible design in keeping with the original building's design, roof shape, material, color, and location of windows, doors, and cornice heights. Now, while the proposed addition to the structure does maintain the addition's roof shape, materials, color, and window locations, the design of the addition's west elevation, because of the addition of the 3-foot of masonry mass above the windows, has been changed considerably in terms of solids to opening ratios of the wall. So as to correct this imbalance, the head heights of the window openings of the second floor should be raised to achieve more appropriate solid to opening ratio. Recommendation: staff recommends approval of submit with the following conditions. Drawing of the west elevation showing the proposed change in window head heights as noted in the findings above be submitted to the staff for review and approval prior to the issuance of the COA. The owner is here.
Thank you, Mr. Ginocchio. Sir, if you'd like to come back forward. I think we're all understand your question now, and if you'd like to elaborate further, please, the floor is yours.
Well, I guess you saw the pictures. The addition was not built properly. I don't know why there is that 8-inch step down into that second floor. It's almost like they built the walls and then started building the floors and realized they hadn't left enough space on the second floor. That's going to be my master suite. But all that's kind of incidental because you're charged with monitoring exterior work. So I'd say by looking at the addition, it doesn't come anywhere near satisfying guideline to a 4C. Of course, this guideline wasn't in place at the time, but I'm trying to raise that roof to make this house more habitable, and I do agree that aesthetically it would look better if those windows were taller, but does that mean that to do anything on this addition that I would also then need to do something to the first floor windows because they don't look anything like the rest of the original structure either? If anything, by raising that roof, I'm bringing the addition closer to being of compatible design in keeping with the original building's design, roof shape, materials, color, and location of windows. I'm not changing the windows. I fully intend to apply to open those windows up, but I don't think that I should have to change those windows in order to be approved of this roof heightening. That's about it.
Okay, well, thank you, sir. We'll see if we have any suggestions for you.
Okay. My understanding of the issue of needing to raise the height of the windows per the staff's recommendation has little to do with the windows on the bottom floor. It's the mass when you're done with the short windows and then this new expanse of brick from the top of the short windows on the second floor to the new eave of the roof above, I think is the issue here. Compared to the relationship to the windows on the second floor of the existing structure, you can see that there's not anywhere near 3 feet of brick between the top of the windows and the bottom of the eave. And no one's...
I'm sorry, sir. Could you could either take the portable microphone or...
Oh, no, I'll keep standing up here.
Okay. Thank you.
That's fine. All the same, the amount of brick and that rhythm of window to brick to the next material, I think that's the issue here. And while the staff is not stating you need to go in and put stone headers and match the windows of the building, the existing building, completely, I believe they are asking that you mimic the relationship more closely, or relate to it, not mimic, sorry, relate to it in a stronger manner by extending the height of the windows. And that's where the connection between the bottom windows and the top windows is broken, I believe. That's why you would never have to alter the bottom windows as part of this.
I have an idea. I don't mean to interrupt the train. I guess this is more, I guess it's staff and my fellow board members and the applicant all at the same time. How about adding like a transom element above the existing windows to have the transparency, to have the piercing in the opening, maintain that solid to mass openings, solids to openings ratio, while preserving the gentleman's existing the windows that are in there.
I have no love for those windows. They are not special windows. They are not especially historic. They are, like I said, I do intend to raise those window heights later, but I didn't apply for it at this time. And on principle, I don't feel like I should have to change those windows in order to make that addition more functional.
Okay.
Couple of questions. The staff findings indicate that there's actually going to be an additional 3 foot of masonry above the windows. Are you going to drop the fascia board down any from its current location, or is it going to stay the exact same height?
I would have preferred to replicate the fascia that is on the rest of the structure, but I was told that would be imitating history, and that it would therefore not be.
Yeah, you probably couldn't imitate the exact ones on the main structure.
The scale of it's a little heavy for where it would be on the, what I think of as new edition. It's not a new edition.
Well, the newer edition.
But it needs to be appropriately scaled to the
that's what I was
edition
saying. The
it's
current
on.
fascia, to me, seems too small.
It is. It's a board.
It seems. I mean, I don't know if
It's sort of
a
an
1x4, but it looks very, very miniature compared to the existing fascia wrapped around the exterior of the house. That almost seems diminished, even though just because the height of the addition, looking on the back wall there, because that back wall doesn't have any windows. Do we know the distance between, what I didn't see in here is the distance between the bottom window and the ground, and the distance between the 2 windows as they currently exist?
Between the bottom window,
Between
of the first
the bottom
floor?
of the between the bottom of the window on the first floor and the ground. Does anyone know that distance?
No, but it's approximately 5 feet 8 inches or thereabouts. Maybe 6 feet.
And then do we know the distance between the 2 windows, the first and second floor windows?
No, but if we back up to the pictures, we can approximate. Because I think I have on here, I think it was approximately 13 bricks was 3 feet, if I recall correctly. Of course, I guess we can't count that, can we?
How tall are those windows?
The second floor windows or the first floor windows? They're different.
They're different sizes. How tall are the first floor? The 60-inch?
Yeah, approximately, but I don't know. I haven't measured them.
In looking at this, it looks to me like they took the top of the addition, just cut it off, and it should have been taller to begin with.
I agree.
I'm not. I don't know what it would look like with existing window heights because we don't have an exact replication of it, but I think it looks weird the way the windows are situated now, and that you almost need more brick above it to make it look normal. To me, it break the existing look of it. I mean, obviously we don't care what exists. I mean, whatever it is today is what it is. We're not approving what's there, but that the existing rhythm, it looks messed up to me. It doesn't seem to have the flow of the normal house. I think I understand Mr. Giannacchio's concern that the 36 inches of additional masonry is going to create too much masonry on the wall. Is that correct, Mr. Giannacchio? Would that be correct?
That is correct.
Essentially, I think the staff's recommendation reflects that the windows will look like, if you think about it not in a literal architectural sense, that they're at your knees, so to speak. Not that they will literally be, we understand, but when the floor comes up and all from the interior, that's going to work well, I think. But there's just too much volume of masonry rising above the what will look like squat windows because of that. And the problem is, in terms of the process, since we are charged with reviewing exterior changes, the reason it's conditioned, as the staff has recommended, is that after you have done the work, and it is top-heavy, so to speak, as in too much volume, kind of squat windows at the bottom, so to speak. I'm still talking only second floor. There's no mechanism to steer that happens. And so we'd be knowingly permitting or issuing a permit for a situation resulting in a not within the guidelines change. And it's because of I don't misunderstand that you're saying you'd like to do this later, but our only legal process is if we're going to approve something, that what's approved reflect what is within, what should be the end product. We have no ability to say, in 2 years from now, it'd be great if you'd fix the windows. We just don't have that mechanism. So we have to look at it as, what's the outcome of your proposed change, and is it going to end up as an end product being what's within the guidelines?
Well, then a question that I have is, will that additional height make that addition look worse than it does? Keeping in mind that this is a view from my driveway, not from the street.
The process reviews all four sides evenly, so in terms of where you view it from, that's really not factored. And because it improves something doesn't necessarily, what we all agree, this is not a stellar construction, not to insult your house.
I didn't do it, it's fine.
But exactly, nobody was party to this, of all of it. So it's not that, but that, making it less problematic certainly is better, but having it reviewed that it be appropriate within the guidelines is what we're charged with. So I'll just leave it to the board.
Well, the first time I was ever before the board, I was told that I couldn't change windows. And now I'm being told that I have to change windows. So I hear where all the criticism of this is coming from, but I'm being painted an inconsistent picture of what exactly is requested of me as a property owner downtown in the historic district. If I need to table this and go through the window process, I will do that. But
I'm not sure that we're talking about tabling it tonight. I mean, there's
No. I think unless you desire us to, I think that with the one condition that you work with staff on resolving a window height, that it's certainly an actionable item this evening. But should you desire us to table it, we would, I think, entertain that as well.
I guess it seemed like a tabling, in effect, was unavoidable. Would I need to reappear before the board for window changes, or because this would be...
No, we could technically approve this with the window conditions, come back to staff for review, and then if there's a disagreement, to come back to the board so that you wouldn't have to come back for another hearing.
That's fine with me.
But I guess I'm in disagreement with the staff about the need to extend the window heights. I mean, and this is, I've said this a number of times in different hearings, but I think the guidelines are sometimes inconsistent. Not intentionally inconsistent, but that unavoidably they're inconsistent at times, and that in two different applications that you could have two different results that on their face are inconsistent. We had a hearing at least 3 times before for window opening, I believe on Clay Avenue, for someone who wanted to he was installing a second floor bathroom and wanted to, I believe, lower the window height. And we had to get structural engineering reports eventually to allow him to do that. And he actually had 2 different sets of windows to do this project.
There is a difference
There,
in that this is a non-significant window opening that needs to be better scaled, and the other was a discussion to do with retaining the integrity of a significant window opening in the main mass of the house.
They may be, but if you look at the guidelines doesn't say, oh, if you're just talking about the scale, you just look here at this guideline. You really have to take all the guidelines together. None of the guidelines say you only look at one subsection of the guidelines and just apply it to one specific case. Section 24 regarding windows say windows should be preserved and maintained in their original location, size, and design with original materials. Well, this is the addition is not original to the building, but the window openings are original to the addition. I think that the top of the addition looks squashed down like a giant put his push and to push the roof right on top of the windows, and that you need some balance above it. Now, I don't know what it's going to look like for 36 inches. I think a bigger fascia board that didn't imitate the original would help fix that, or a transom perhaps could fix that. But I don't think the window openings are I don't think the window openings as they exist create a problem with a violation of the guidelines.
Thank you, Mr. Billings. Mr. Hosfield, have any additional comments?
I don't have anything to add to what's been said so far.
Let's see if anyone in the audience has any comments or questions regarding this case. Sir, do you have any additional comments or questions?
No, just thank you all for your time as usual, and thank you, Martin and Amelia. Even though I disagree, I really appreciate your expertise and the time, and you're always very helpful, and so I appreciate you.
Thank you. Certainly entertain a motion regarding this case, please.
I did have one final question.
Oh, certainly.
The drawing that we have shows the roof actually intersecting what looks to be a box gutter. Is that actually
If I recall correctly, this is a Photoshop.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. There's a hand drawing that shows it actually stepped down from there, and I just wanted to make sure
that was, yeah. If I understood Martin's statement at the beginning of this in the presentation, as well as I believe a note in the attachment.
Okay.
I think I can clear this up just to say that the photo, and also the presenter also stated this at the beginning, that the Photoshop is trumped by the hand drawing.
I just want to make sure I was clear on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Billings.
Should I entertain a motion at this time?
Yes, please.
Mr. Chairman, with respect to case number 188000449-B at 449 West 3rd Street, I recommend that the board approve the application as submitted with the condition that the final details come back to staff for review with the removal of the language that the proposed window change in head height as proposed in the findings be made. And I would cite to section 124A for my disagreement with the staff on that.
Thank you, Mr. Billings. Is there a second to the motion? I don't believe there's a second to the motion, so the motion fails. Would anyone else like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that case number 188000449-B be granted by the board certificate of appropriateness with the staff's recommendations as written.
Thank you, Mr. Hosfield. Is there a second to the motion? I'll second the motion. Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. And, sir, thank you very much for your patience and discussing this with us. I believe the next case is at 429 North Broadway in the North Side Historic District. Construct handicap ramp. Is that applicant present? I believe we've given the applicants ample time to arrive this evening. Should it be the board's desire, we could go ahead and act on it, and if there's a problem, I'm sure the applicant will come back and speak.
Would the chair entertain a motion on this case?
Oh,
Mr.
sorry,
Juncker,
sir.
did you-
They can ring the bell, and we even here would hear that thing. It is unbelievable. But that's interesting, the door is locked. Did you ring the bell? Really?
Is the officer at the door?
Interesting.
Well, thank you for that information. I'll go check on that in terms of things. But I spoke to the property owner, who actually is a corporate owner in Florida of this property, and we did not discuss whether someone would be representing it or not. He didn't. He was just kind of, oh, I'm glad that's in the works, and whatever. So he didn't know details. I mean, he's in Florida, and was going to call his local office, that being who are the occupants of this building, and touch base with them. So the only thing I could say is I know they're not unaware, certainly, and Amelia's been in touch previously, but we obviously don't know if the person intended to come or not. We don't know.
Certainly. I think if there's a question, they could always come back and ask us. That said, with no interest in the audience, we'd certainly entertain a motion regarding this case, please.
Mr. Chairman, with respect to case number 02500-429-H at 429 North Broadway, I move that we, as the board, adopt the staff recommendations for approval submitted with the following conditions. Number 1, ramp be constructed of either wood or composite wood, plastic material. 2, if ramp is constructed of wood, the handrail, guardrail be of wood or metal. 2, or 3, if the ramp is constructed of composite metal, the handrail is to be construction of wood or metal. 4, all exposed wood used in the construction of the ramp is to be painted or opaque stained except for the floorboards. 5, final drawings, details to be submitted to staff for review or approval prior to the purchase of any materials or the start of work.
Thank you, Mr. Billings. Well read. Second of the motion.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Hosfield. Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. The next case is at 367 Park Avenue in the Aylesford Historic District. The scope of the work is to remove porch enclosure, change garage opening, and construct patio. Is that applicant present? Sir, if you'd like to come forward and give us your name and address, please.
My name is Don Wathen, and I live at 1824 Richmond Road.
Sir, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Have you had an opportunity to read the staff's findings and recommendations regarding this case?
Yes, I have, and I agree with everything, except I'd just like to point out why I wanted the size of the patio like it was. This is college housing, and it's a 5-bedroom home that I'm fixing up. And as you all saw, the front porch used to be a room. They made it into a room, and of course we were going to put it back as a porch. And I think they submitted the handrail of what it's going to look like and everything. So it's going back to the original. But in the back there's a concrete garage, block garage, and I thought it would be nice if I could put a patio back there where they could, there will be 5 college kids. So that would be 5 chairs, maybe a little table. We could have a grill back there, and they could be in the back instead of on the front porch partying. And I just thought it'd be a little more conducive to put them in the backyard rather than front yard. And I can get along with what they recommend. I think they say 12 by 10. I just don't know if I can fit 5 college kids with their friends on the back on that space. But I'll do whatever y'all can. You know, I was just making it a little nicer for them. So instead of being on the front porch partying, they go back in the backyard and party. That's what I was going to do. So whatever y'all like to do. We put the Herbie on there too. Okay.
Sir, thank you very much for coming down and giving us your comments this evening. Let's see if any of the board members have any questions or comments for you. Mr. Hosfield?
Well, I agree that the larger concrete patio would be would fit more stuff as far as future activities. I also feel like college kids are pretty flexible. They could put chairs in the grass next to the concrete as well. I don't think it hurts the future use of the project, but also by reducing the concrete, I believe we are sticking closer to the guidelines as far as preserving the green patch that's there. But I appreciate your comments.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hosfield. Mr. Billings. Thank you, Mr. Billings. Would anyone in the audience like to speak regarding this case this evening? Hearing no comments, would certainly entertain a motion regarding this case, please.
For case number 146000367-D 367 Park Avenue, I move that we approve the submittal with the staff's conditions as written.
Thank you, Mr. Hosfield. Is there a second to the motion?
Motion second.
Thank you, Mr. Billings. Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any approved? Motion carries. Sir, thank you once again. Okay. I believe we're at 281 South Ashland Avenue in the South Ashland Central Avenue Historic District. The scope of the work is to demolish an addition, construct addition, and site work. If the staff would go through the presentation, I would greatly appreciate it.
This is the property at 281 South Ashland Avenue. This is coming down the drive on the south side, or the left side of the building. There is a garage, wood frame, 20 by 20. That is right at the end of the driveway as it curves around, which is going to remain. This is a shot across the backyard. This is the corner of the, there we go. This is the southwest corner of the structure. The rear elevation portion of it. This is another rear elevation, the other portion. I think that shows you. This is looking toward the southeast. This is across looking south. And we're back. The applicant at this time is requesting the board grant a COA to demolish the rear 13 foot by 18 foot wood frame addition, construct a new 2.5 story rear addition, including a ground level garage, first level family room, service area, and open deck, a second level library and attic dormer level. Item 3 is site work is to include retaining walls and paving at the garage area where the cut is to be made. The proposed additions have a stone retaining wall to match the structure's existing foundation, painted brick masonry walls that match in course with the existing, and a matching standing seam metal roof. Doors and windows to be of wood construction and be glazed with insulated glass. The flush panel overhead and garage doors are to be of wood construction. The porch column is to be of cast polymer and the deck railing of redwood having iron spindles. Site work is to include the demolition of a portion of the asphalt paved driveway, changing of the earth's contours at the south side of the proposed addition as required for the garage. Stone retaining walls are to be constructed at either side of the garage entry, and that section of disturbed earth then repaved and matching asphalt. We've listed the guidelines for your reference. The 1.5-story vinyl clad 13 by 18 foot wood frame addition located at the interior corner of the historic masonry structure, proposed for demolition as a non-significant later addition and would be within the guidelines to be removed. This proposed new addition includes plans for a garage attached to the house, which is not in keeping with guidelines. Guidelines 2B, 2B, and C note that accessory buildings should be located in character with other secondary buildings for the street at the rear of the property, not close to or attached to primary building, and should be compatible in design, shape, material, and roof shape with other secondary buildings in the historic district. A garage attached to the historic house becoming part of the primary structure is not appropriate for this house, site, or the historic district, and would be detrimental to the character and integrity of the same. There is currently a freestanding garage on the property. Any proposed new addition to this circa 1893 house should relate in scale, mass, and rhythm to the historic structure. As noted in Guideline 2A4C, additions should be compatible design in keeping with the original building's design, roof shape, and location of windows, doors, and cornice heights, and should reflect characteristics of the current period design, but be compatible with the original building. The proposed location and footprint of the addition is within the guidelines, and there is sufficient green space for such an addition. However, the manner by which it is accomplished needs further study. One of the signatures of the design style of this Richardsonian Romanesque style house is its mass, scale, and volume. The floor-to-ceiling ratio of the proposed addition does not adequately relate to that of the historic structure, resulting in the principal mass of the proposed new addition being too short as it relates to the vertical scale and mass of the historic structure. While it is strongly recommended that new additions tuck under the existing cornice of the historic houses, this proposal demonstrates a problem when the proposed new building does not appropriately relate to the window, door, cornice, and roof lines of the historic mass. The grade of this property should not be reduced, as is proposed, to accommodate the attached garage, and any new addition should rise in appropriate relationship to the vertical mass and rhythm of the openings, cornices, etc., of the historic house. Due to the overall design issues as they relate to the guidelines noted in this report, staff has not at this time addressed proposed details, some of which have not been provided. However, would note that the proposed chimney is not appropriately scaled, as it too is short, and the windows on the north face of the addition are not appropriately sized or placed. Proposed cellar windows on the north face copy or mimic those in the historic house, which is not in accordance with the guidelines. The proposed portion of the addition that rises to a third-story roof dormer that connects into the existing attic space transitions awkwardly from the two-story new addition as well, as not addressing the roof wall system appropriately. More information is needed on this. Further study of any proposed new addition should not include an attached garage and should address the issues noted in this report. Additional information also is needed on the following items: the basement plan, third floor plan, roof plan, a wall section that cuts through all floors, including the attic dormer. Overhangs need to be drawn. Shadow lines shown on the elevations all seem to indicate a greater soffit width than the 5.5-inch scaled on the cemented wall section. Window and door details. Recommendation: staff recommends approval of the demolition of the existing rear frame additions as submitted. Staff recommends denial of the proposed new construction of attached garage, changing of land elevations, and construction of retaining walls. And staff recommends tabling the balance of the application to allow the applicant time to further study the design in light of those items as noted in the findings above.
Thank you, Mr. Ginocchio.
You're welcome.
Pardon me. Sir, if you'd like to come back forward. Okay. If you would be so kind as to restate, it's been a little while since we spoke with
Bobby
you.
Freisberg, and I'm here on behalf of my parents. I read this today, and I don't understand a lot of it, but most of it I don't agree with, and was just wondering if somebody can explain what all of this meant. But then I have a few things that I'd like to say about this.
Certainly. Would you like us to try to explain?
Well, first of all, one thing that was pointed out is that the existing garage will stay. That is not the case. The existing garage is not structurally sound, and the idea originally when we started with this was to rebuild the garage at the end of the driveway, so thereby freeing up more green space, being able to plant more trees. And then when we looked into this and realized that we had to dig down deep enough to support what we were building, we decided why not use that space for the garage also. I'm not necessarily stuck on having the garage underneath there. It would be great if we could, but like I said, we would also agree to build the garage at the end of the driveway. The second, or actually the third paragraph under findings, to me basically says or supports why it should be approved, because I believe that the plans pay tribute to what is existing, but at the same time it's not trying to imitate, and it is showing that it is more modern. But I don't understand. There's a lot of things in here that contradict. On the one hand, certain things are not supposed to mimic, but on the other hand, windows are not the right size. They don't fit in with the windows in the old part of the building. So I'm not really sure where the actual issue is here.
I think in a nutshell, the issues that the staff are expressing are with regard to scale and to massing.
Is it such that they're saying the addition is too large or too small, or too not high enough, or too high, or?
I think it's a combination of all of those factors. And in some places, and in some areas, I think that the design would need to be adjusted to help carry some of the regulating lines across from the existing structure into any new proposed addition. I think in other areas, perhaps the way that the addition addresses the historic massing are not quite in scale. This might be an opportunity for me to suggest that we actually move this to a conceptual review level where we can actually, when we get a certificate of appropriateness in, the process really doesn't allow us to design and change the application on the fly. And what I would suggest would be to come back for a conceptual review where we can sort of thresh out different ideas. And it's very much more of an informal, because nothing's being actually applied for in a legal sense, where we could discuss different options and help you design the addition in a way which would make it an easier fit within the guidelines. We couldn't, of course, say yes, if you do it this way exactly, it's definitely going to be within the guidelines, but we can certainly get you to a point where I think that you or your design professional could take the suggestions and incorporate into an overall design that would be a much better end product for you, as well as helping it meet the intent of the guidelines. If that's not too convoluted.
I guess what I don't understand is I would like to see if it's actually subjective issues here or if it's actually a violation of any of these guidelines, because I don't see any violations of the guidelines.
I can help you out with a couple of very specific instances. Number one, garage is an accessory building. They are not allowed to be attached under Section 2. You'll find on page 113 of the guidelines. They have to be detached from the main structure. So you try to tie in an accessory building as the first ground floor, so that's not permitted at all under the guidelines. That's the beginning place. The footprint of the structure, the proposed addition, is fine. I don't think there's any issue with it. And we probably hardly ever said this. I think that you guys said earlier, is it too small? I think the answer is yes, that it doesn't correctly relate to the mass of the building to which it's going to be attached. Without respect to dealing with the windows or the placement of windows, that the way it looks is not brought up high enough to tie into the back wall of the existing structure. There is problems with the grading of the property that you want to do to dig out room for the garage. The floor-to-ceiling ratios don't match. There's a number of problems that are actually identified in the report with respect to the guidelines, and the guidelines that they're talking about are actually cited here for you.
Well, 3 of them.
I'm sorry? 3. Well, only 3 guidelines are cited?
Well, I see the guideline, but there's only 3 that are cited as being.
Well, all the ones that are applicable are cited to you, but there's a number that are actually cited. There's a number that are cited to show you point by point which ones are applicable. There's 3 of them that are specifically identified in the findings. I think overall the problem is that the project itself is very admirable. It's a good project. I don't think anybody here is disagreeing with the idea of adding this addition on. I think what we're saying is that what you'll want to do has some significant problems, and to get where you want to go, we think that the best thing to do is to begin working with staff to come forward with the conceptual review, which is not a give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down, is to come say, this is our proposal. What things do you all think are consistent with the guidelines? What things are inconsistent with the guidelines, so that we can massage those to bring them within the guidelines? Because as it stands tonight, I can't approve the application. So what I want to do is add value to your time tonight, so that you can have an addition that fits within the guidelines, which is my job, but something you guys love in the end, which is your all's job.
Right. I don't think that the staff can actually come up with any suggestions unless they actually have been inside the house and know where the issues are. That section that's being torn off was built at one point and it was a chapel at one point. It is in between 2 floors. So there's no way that you can do it any other way and be able to keep, it has to stay where it is because we have an entrance from the middle of the house into there. So there has to be a middle floor. And that's just the way it is.
Well, it doesn't mean that you can't enter into middle floor and have to go up or down. There's some split floor issues. I think that to say the staff couldn't help you with what you're wanting to do, I think is probably a extreme underestimation of the experience and knowledge and suggestions that the staff has. That they have done this with thousands of projects around Lexington, and I think everyone who comes through here and engages the staff to help them through the conceptual review process, although in the front they may be skeptical, at the end is very pleased with the knowledge that staff can bring to help you with your project.
Have they been inside the house?
I'm sorry?
Have they been inside the house?
I don't know if they've been inside or not.
No.
But that's one of the things I would suggest, that if they haven't been inside the house, that's why you need to involve them.
Right, but that's why I pay an architect.
Okay. Well,
because I just don't understand.
I'm not going to argue with you about whether you should or shouldn't hire an architect. What I'm saying is that staff isn't going to design it for you. What people normally do is engage the staff with either themselves, their architect, their designer, their builder, their engineer, depends on how you're doing your project, to say, this is what we want to do. These are the components we want to have. Staff, how can we help do that within the guidelines? Rather than just say, here's our plan, approve it.
Why do I get this a day before this hearing?
So that you can.
But why do I get it a day before this hearing,
as opposed to
several days before?
Now, staff gets them out as soon as they can. What you saw the docket tonight, we had 14
But it
cases
basically leaves us here,
this isn't going to be an argument tonight about when you got it or when you didn't. You got it yesterday. If you look at the number of projects on the docket, it was huge for tonight.
I guess what I would like, if possible, and which I requested at the beginning, is for you to point out exactly where it violates.
I just did. I pointed out a number of things for you. This is the issue. The staff's findings, I think, are consistent with the guidelines that show that the proposal violates the guidelines, and that our suggestion, rather than get frustrated with us in the process, because that's the last thing I want to happen, is for people to get frustrated with the H1 overlay process, is instead of arguing, is to say, to listen to the suggestion that we have. The suggestion is not saying you can't have an addition. It's to say we're not going to, at least I'm not going to vote in favor of the addition tonight. I don't think that what's proposed meets the guidelines. Doesn't mean that some might not. And my suggestion is to begin working with the staff now to come back with a conceptual review for what you want to do, the elements that you're tying in here to say, this is what we want to do, this is the scale, this is the mass, this is the footprint, remove the garage element from it. The garage on its face is the reason I don't have to give you any other reason than the garage. I think there's some scale issues on the back of the property.
That's basically what I'm looking for. Can somebody tell me, like you've just said, scale issues on the back of the property, but it doesn't say that in here. It doesn't. It just says that there are scale issues, but it doesn't say where the scale issues are.
I think we may disagree.
Can I interject with some comments? First of all, it's good that you're working with an architect. This is a big undertaking. This is part of the process, though, the design process, in my opinion, in doing design work in an H1 overlay area. It's been designed, you've addressed problems of your needs. The guidelines are here now, available in that whole process. It is possible that there are different interpretations of the guidelines along the design process, and that's fine. You've come before us with this application. Staff has looked at it, considered it, made recommendations to us. I appreciate that you're here and asking questions for clarification on what the staff has said. And I'm glad that you're receptive to, there are scale issues. If you have trouble knowing where the scale issues are, I feel like it's clear that the scale issues were at the back in the addition. If you didn't understand, I'm glad that we've got that clear now. Earlier, you made the comment of, or question, I guess, is the contrast between old and new and appropriate. The contrast that we see here so far between new and old, I think it is appropriate. I think it's a nice design so far. I think the problems that exist with the scaling are things that the staff can help you with, you and your architect, and we can meet in the middle here and make everybody happy. I don't think anybody has a problem with the concept of an addition. I think it is clear that the garage attached to the house is inappropriate. It has been a helpful tool, and I'll just reiterate this, to move a project that's in this phase into conceptual design, which is where we could hammer out, okay, you don't like the massing at the back of the house. How would you solve it? What are your suggestions? At that point, we're not going to take over the design and design it instead of your architect. Ben, of course, should be part of the process. He's been part of the process before and had success with it, I know. His questions and your questions would be, what could we do to help this problem? We can make suggestions and help address the mass here would help if it were A, B, and C. The issue at this point is, in my mind, and correct me if I'm wrong, if the board has a different thought on it, the design is in a good place, but it needs to be in a better place as far as how it relates to the existing structure. We understand that the plan has been laid out in a manner to meet your needs and your wishes for the future of the structure, but we need it to relate stronger to the existing structure and the components, the design components of the existing structure.
Can you elaborate on the mass at the back of the house? Are you saying it's too low, wide, narrow?
I think the biggest issue is height.
So it's not high enough?
Just at a glance, the way the building, and without getting this too far, because now we're starting to get into conceptual review, which we would need to do at a later date. But just at a glance, I have an issue with the height of the addition. Not so much the footprint, but just the way it relates. The house, the original house itself, is quite tall. It's physically tall, but it appears tall. The addition on the back, while 2+ stories, doesn't feel tall. There's, I think, a disconnect in the relationship between the two structures. And that's something I think we could explore further in a conceptual review, that among other issues. Thoughts or comments?
Yeah, it's just when you just said that even though it's 2.5 stories high, it just doesn't seem to fit, connect to the other part of the house. My problem with that is that it does say here, too, that while it strongly recommends that new additions tuck under the existing corners of the historic houses, how can you achieve that, but at the same time be as high as?
Well, you can easily tuck it in under the. It depends on how you're tying it into the main structure. On the rear of the property, you have a massive rear wall that you're trying to add an addition onto. The proposal, it looks like you're. And this is maybe a bad analogy, but it looks like you're adding a little Lego building onto a big Barbie mansion. In that it needs to be a more massive addition. And normally we go the other way because a lot of people want to come with these massive additions that are as big as the main house, which are too far the other way. It's clear that it says it's too short for the mass and the scale of the back walls. I understand it's wrapping around. You need to tie it into that existing chapel. I guess there's some type of weird elevation with where the chapel is located off of the second and first floors. I guess there's maybe steps that lead down to where it is today. That is an internal design issue that will have to be addressed. I just don't think there's any question in the board's mind that the proposed addition, its scale compared to the structure and its mass compared to the structure are not sufficient to honor the Richardsonian style of the house.
Then I'll leave it at that because do disagree, especially when you drive down the road on Ashland and see a recent addition that was built, which is a one-story addition. The neighbor has a one-story addition. It's much lower. But I guess everyone has their own viewpoints on stuff like that. So I will, guess we'll take it off.
Beg pardon?
I guess we'll take it off. I won't seek conceptual designs for it, so it can be off the docket.
I think our suggestion is that you would withdraw the application tonight and then confer with staff about moving forward with your addition. Don't scrap your idea. Please don't take anything we've said tonight to scrap your idea. I don't want you to do that. I think this next step is for you to withdraw the application and then talk to staff, say, hey, this is what we want to do. Let's begin a conversation to make it work. Right. That's what they do every day. That's what they're here to do. And that's what they do a great job of.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
Would anyone in the audience like to speak regarding this case this evening? Okay, hearing no additional comments, I'd certainly entertain a motion regarding this case. Or staff, do you have any comments or suggestions?
I believe I've heard the applicant withdraw his case.
Is that right?
I believe that's...
And if so, I think he would just note, law, correct me, but wouldn't they just note that the case was withdrawn?
Oh, that's right.
That's what we've done before.
There's no action.
Won't need a motion
done before,
per se, other than to note that.
I amend my request and entertainment of a motion. I believe that concludes our business this evening. Thank you, everyone, very much.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Billings.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Hosfield. Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you all very much.